Now let's take up the if statement. Here's an example function that uses the if statement. And here's how it works. I'm going to set x equal to 5, y equals 0, and z equals 0, and then I'm going to test it. I'm going to test if x is greater than 0, I'm going to print x is positive. If y is greater than 0, I'll print y is positive, else I'll print y is not positive. Let's see how that works. So x is 5, so when we get down to this statement, we're really comparing 5 to greater than 0, which is true, so it'll print that x is positive, and there you see it's done. Okay, if y is greater than 0, it'll print y is positive, else it'll print y is not positive. Y is 0, so y greater than 0 is not true, so it will not print this. It'll print y is not positive instead, and you see that is the case. And then you've got an else if statement. Let's take z. We test to see if z is greater than 0. Well, that's not true. It is 0. So we won't print z as positive. Then we'll check if z is greater than 0, which is not, else if, that's what elif means, else if z is less than 0, we'll print z as negative. Well, it's not negative either, so that won't happen. And else will take care of anything else. It'll print z must be 0, and that's what it prints. Okay, if we change the values of these, things would work differently. Okay, so you got if, notice the if statement, there's a condition that you test to see whether it's true, and then it ends in a colon, and then anything that's indented, 4 spaces underneath that, gets executed if this is true. In the case of this, here's another if statement. Notice the end of colon. The stuff that's indented, if this is true, get executed, else this gets executed, and this got executed. Notice else has a colon. If z is greater than 0, colon, print z is positive. Else if z is less than 0, print z is negative. Notice the colon. Else, colon, print z must be 0. Now I want to talk about the equal signs for just a minute. Equal is an assignment. Okay? If I want to set x equal to 5, I set it this way. If I want to test to see if x is equal to 5, I use double equals. If I want to check to see if x is not equal to 5, I put exclamation point equals. So this is assignment, this tests for equality, this tests for not equals. Here's some examples. We'll give those x, y, and z values. And then we'll try them out on these statements. Okay. This statement says print x is equal to y. Okay, so we test to see if x is equal to y, and that will either be true or false. X is equal to y is true, so it prints true. This has a value of true, and it prints that. Okay. Print x is not equal to y, so we'll test for not equal. Well, they are equal, so this is false. If x is not equal to y, it's false. That's what it prints. If x is equal to z, we'll test to see if x is equal to z. Well, x is 5 and z is 6, so that's just not true that x is equal to z. And x is equal to z, since it's not true, is false. Okay, the last one is we'll check to see if x is not equal to z, and x is not equal to z. X is 5 and z is 6. So x not equal to z is true, and that's what it prints. Here's an example of a function that makes use of the double equals for comparison as well as the equals for assignment, and does a computation. Here, let me run it first, and then we'll talk about it. This function, it computes the area of a square or a circle. First of all, I've got to tell it whether we're talking about a circle or a square. Okay, if I tell it that we want the area of a circle, then I give it the radius of the circle, 5, say, and it computes the area of the circle. If we say that we're computing the area of a square, and I give it a 5, then it computes a different number. Let's see how it does that. Well, the definition of the function is here, and I use a variable type, which would be either circle or square, and I give either the radius if it's a circle or the length of a side if it's a square. Now we have our usual documentation here. Tells you how to run it. Now we compare type to circle. Notice we use a double equal. If type is equal to circle, then we'll do the following. We'll do these two lines. They're both indented the same under that if statement. Else, if type is equal to square, then we'll do these two statements, and they're both indented 4 spaces underneath the else if. Else will print, I don't know that one. Let's do an example of that. Area of a parallelogram 4. Okay. So, and by the way, this unusual naming here is because type, I wanted to use type here, and type is a key word in Python. It's a word like print that has a special meaning, or elif that has a special meaning, or if that has a special meaning, or else that has a special meaning. Type means the type of the variable, like is it an integer or a real number or a string. Okay, now so I put an underscore after that to indicate, to make it not just the word type. Just a little technical thing. Now let's check this. If type is equal to circle, notice we have the colon at the end of the the if. We have double equals here for this is to check to see if they are equal. It doesn't do an assignment. But here's an equal using assignment. We're going to set area equal to pi x squared. That's the formula for the area of a circle. And then we'll print the area. Else if type happens to be equal to square, and again we use the double equals for comparison, and we'll compute the area of a square if that is true, and that's the side squared. And we print that area. Else we'll just print we don't know. We could expand this by repeating else ifs and add additional types of figures. Now I want you to write a function that makes use of the if statement. I want you to compute the absolute value of a number. Here's my run of the program on these test data. Absolute value of 5 is 5. The absolute value of minus 5 is 5. The absolute value of 0 is 0. So there are 3 runs of my program. I think you should write the program and make the printout look like mine. The absolute value of, write that string and then give the number, and then is, and then compute the absolute value of that number, print that. Remember that if the number is less than 0, you just multiply by -1 to make it greater than 0. When you finish writing your program, press the continue button to continue. Here's my solution. Definition, absolute value of number, colon. If the number is greater than or equal to 0, then the absolute value of the number is the number. Else, the absolute value of the number is the negative of the number, or -1 times the number. And then once you've computed the absolute value, then you can print the absolute value of num is abs num.